How fun would it be to visit actual spy film locations from a couple of great James Bond 007 films, Goldfinger and License to Kill? Well, we just did that, and we're going to tell you all about it now. Hi, this is Dan Silvestri.
And Tom Pizzato.
With SpyMovieNavigator.com, the worldwide community for spy movie fans. Spy movie podcasts, videos, discussions, and more. Today we're going to talk about our trip to Florida in the United States to some of the film locations for Goldfinger and License to Kill, a couple of great James Bond 007 movies by Ian Productions. So on this trip, Tom and I went to Miami, Florida in the United States of America, and to Key West, which is also in the United States of America, one of the great Florida Keys.
And we went in the month of February, which is a very good time to go down there, temperature-wise.
Yeah, if you're from Chicago, when it's 10 degrees in Chicago in February, that's a good place to go because it's warm down there. In Goldfinger, several scenes were shot in Miami.
Actually, Dan, for Goldfinger, the only scenes that weren't shot at Pinewood were shot in Miami. So even though they're supposed to go to Fort Knox and they're supposed to be in Kentucky,
yes,
they never went to Kentucky.
That's true. So these scenes, several of them that were shot in Miami, are supposed to be in Kentucky.
Exactly, and we'll talk more about that.
Which is also a state in the U.S., but that's but they never went to Kentucky.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about that when we get to some of the sections that we went to, some of the places we went to.
Right.
And we can see how they tried to use them for Kentucky.
Yeah. So as you know, Goldfinger starts out with James Bond at the Fontainebleau Resort in Miami Beach.
Was he really?
And he's on holiday. Now, of course, Sean Connery, playing James Bond, never set foot in Miami Beach for this movie.
The only two actors they actually flew in for it were Cease Linder and Austin Willis, who play Leiter and Simmons, who are the CIA agents.
Yes.
That are supposed to be in Kentucky.
Yes.
And Cease actually meets Bond at the Fontainebleau.
So at the Fontainebleau in Miami Beach, we see Felix Leiter walking. It's a beautiful resort. He's walking by the pools and palm trees, and he walks up to James Bond, who's getting a massage. And if you look at the film, you'll see that Sean Connery actually never made it to Miami Beach for this scene. You'll see, and when you know this, you'll see the background. They did the establishing shots of the resort and pool area and everything else, and you'll see like Goldfinger and Bond look very crisp, but the backgrounds are kind of blurry and so on. They green screened all that stuff, and so it was kind of cool. But once you know that, you look at that and go, "Yeah, well, I could kind of see that."
Yeah. So when you see like Felix walking by the pool, that's really Cease walking by the pool.
Yes.
Wearing Harry Saltzman hat.
By the way.
Yeah, so that was actually Harry's hat. But, so that was him walking by the pool. And, when they filmed that, down in Miami there, especially at that time, the demographic of the people who would have been staying at the Fontainebleau leaned a little older.
Yes.
And so what they did with the crowd there was they told everybody, we're going to start filming at 4:00. You might want to go get your hair done and everything. So all of the people that were there left. And then while they were gone,
they filmed.
They brought in all the beautiful
extras, girls.
All the beautiful girls and the good-looking guys too, and brought them all in there, filmed it. And then at 4:00, they went and pretended to film it with no film in the camera so that the guests that were there really thought they were being filmed.
Yeah. All right. That's good. Yeah. So this establishing shot with Bond meeting Felix Leiter at the pool area where he's getting the massage, Bond is getting the massage, sets up the rest of the movie because at this point, Bond is actually on holiday. He had just finished the other mission, as you saw him blowing up stuff in the beginning of the film. He's on holiday now. And then he's at this gorgeous resort in Miami Beach, Florida, in the United States. So then Felix Leiter shows up and says, by the way, M wants you actually to check something out because there's another guy staying at this resort named Goldfinger, and he wants you to kind of tail him and figure out what he's doing because somehow or another he's involved in smuggling gold. Now, of course, his name is Auric Goldfinger. Like Goldfinger wasn't enough of a clue
really.
that he does stuff with gold. But Auric, of course, AU is the symbol for gold on the elemental table. So, okay, we get it.
We get it.
He's doing something with gold.
There's something gold about this guy.
Yeah, and now Bond is going to be assigned to be checking him out. So,
and after Felix tells him this, Bond makes some quip about the fact that OM wouldn't have sent me to this nice resort on Miami Beach for nothing.
Yeah, the best resort in Miami Beach or something like that, he said. Yeah, and it is a beautiful resort. So Tom and I, when we were in Miami, we went right to the Fontainebleau. We got there in the evening and scoped it out stealthily, and it looked gorgeous. So the next day we went back, and we took our cameras and our microphones and our gear, and we walked into the Fontainebleau Resort. And for a resort that was built in the 50s, it's spectacular.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
The upkeep has been tremendous. The resort itself is fabulous.
Well, that's one reason why the rooms were so expensive.
Yeah, the rooms are pricey.
Yeah.
But the resort and the whole grounds and all the area, it's just
top shelf.
It is. It's top shelf. It's beautiful. So we walked into the lobby and we walked through the lobby. We found the area where the ice skating rink was in the movie.
It was as important because it's not there anymore.
It's a shop now and so on. But definitely that was the ice skating rink in the movie where Felix Leiter walks by, right?
Yeah, you see it in the background when he's walking by.
Yeah.
To get out to the pool.
So that was kind of cool. That was our first film location we saw. I was like, oh, wow, that's kind of neat. And then we walked out onto the terrace overlooking the pools and stuff. Now, the whole pool area is different than it was.
Totally. Where the diving board was doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, all of it is different now, but it's still fabulously gorgeous. And so we walked around. We did a little filming up there. We shot some scenes. We walked down to the pool area, and then we wanted to get into the pool area, but you need room keys to get into the pool area. But one way or another, Tom and I...
If you're paying that kind of money for a room... You want a little bit of privacy.
Yeah, we got into.
You don't want the riffraff coming in.
Yeah. So we got into the pool area and we established a couple of shots where Felix Leiter actually was standing.
So when we're standing at outside the pool area, looking back at the hotel, and you've got the curved area of the hotel, you can really see first how absolutely beautiful it is. But that's actually one of the clues you can use to see when you're looking at something that was shot live where Cease was standing there, where Felix Leiter was standing there.
Yes.
Versus where they, had the card game going on back at Pinewood Studios in the mock-up of the resort.
Right. Yeah, and it's beautiful. The building looks exactly the same, except there's a little bump out now, I think.
Yeah, there's an addition
they put on the building. But the establishing shot, you could see where the vertical pillars are, the vertical parts, and where Felix is standing in a couple of scenes. And so you could figure out exactly where he was. And we did. And we took some video there. You could see that on the website. But it was just a gorgeous place, beautiful. We found a couple of shots like that. We saw the ice skating rink. We saw where Felix was. And again, the whole pool area is completely different than it was when they shot the film. So you're not going to see like where
the massage was.
Yeah, where the massage was, or where Auric Goldfinger was playing cards and stuff like that.
Yeah, even the balcony scene and the room itself, that was all shot in Pinewood. That wasn't really shot from the resort itself. They did an establishing shot for how to make the Pinewood studio look right. But that actually wasn't all filmed there. So
we've been to the Fontainebleau. The next few scenes we're going to be looking at that were filmed in Miami but are supposed to be in Kentucky are the KFC, the Kentucky Fried Chicken, where Felix Leiter and Simmons are waiting to pick up Bond's homing device signal so they could follow him if necessary. Odd Job's route, where he's driving Mr. Solo with his gold in the Lincoln to the airport, theoretically, in
And that's
Kentucky.
where the locator that Bond had put in Solo's pocket makes Felix and Simmons think that Bond's on the move.
Exactly. The last scene is the Miami Iron and Metal Yard, where Oddjob is driving Mr. Solo to his pressing engagement instead of the airport.
Yeah, I love that pressing engagement.
Yeah. It's cool.
So we're now trying to find the Kentucky Fried Chicken where Leiter and Simmons are waiting, having a lunch, waiting for James Bond to get on the move with the locator beacon. The locator beacon starts going. Simmons calls for Leiter, who comes running out of the restaurant, and they go to try to get to where they think Bond is.
So we're going to cut to a clip of Tom and I in the car that we recorded actually down there while we're looking for these things. Here we go. Continuing our Bond location sites in Miami for Goldfinger, we are now at the Kentucky Fried Chicken. Now, if you recall, Felix Leiter and his partner Simmons from the CIA, they were supposed to track Bond with the homing device that Bond had in his shoe. So there's 2 scenes that were shot here at Kentucky Fried Chicken, and they're about 12 minutes apart in the movie. The first scene is Bond is still captured over at Goldfinger's place in that little prison type thing, and they're waiting in the car here in front of Kentucky Fried Chicken at this in the parking lot. Eventually Bond escapes and discovers the plan for Fort Knox and Operation Grand Slam. And so he writes a note and wraps it around the transmitter, the homing device. And when Mr. Solo wants out of Goldfinger's plan, and Goldfinger loads his gold into the Lincoln Continental, Bond slips the wrapped homing device into Mr. Solo's pocket, thinking that he may be going to the airport and that Simmons and Leiter can track him and follow him. Well, as it turns out, of course, they're not going to the airport, and the scene shifts back to here to this second scene for Kentucky Fried Chicken. And in that scene, that's when the Lincoln is passing by, and Simmons is in the car waiting for Leiter to come out of the Kentucky Fried Chicken. At this point, Simmons beeps the horn to get Leiter out of the Kentucky Fried Chicken and backs the car out of a spot. And we're looking right at the spot he backed the car out of. And we're looking at the corner where the Kentucky Fried Chicken door used to be, right on the curvy corner of the building. It's now around the corners. There's doors on either side. And Felix Leiter comes running out, wipes his mouth with the napkin he has in his left hand, and he jumps back in the car as Simmons speeds off trying to track Bond, who they think is Bond, and they'll be following the Lincoln.
Hey, Dan, why don't you talk about why they almost wouldn't have filmed here at this restaurant, and if it was today, they wouldn't have filmed here.
That's a good point. Today, the sign says, if you're watching on their video, you'll see the whole thing here in video. But if you're listening just on the podcast, the Kentucky Fried Chicken now, of course, says KFC. When Guy Hamilton, the director of Goldfinger, was looking for scenes, locations in Miami, he was astounded that there was a Kentucky Fried Chicken, because remember, this was supposed to be taking place in Kentucky, where Goldfinger's farm was. And so this little snippet comes from Martin Mulder's book, On the Tracks of 007. And he was so shocked. It's like, oh my God, it says Kentucky here. This is perfect. And later he realized there was like 50 million of them.
There were 600 of them at the time.
Yeah, he said 50 million. There were 600 of them at the time. Kentucky Fried Chickens all over the country and so on. So apparently they had not been in Europe yet. So anyway, that was the real reason they filmed here. Today it just says KFC, so they might not have selected this spot. Today, again, of course, things look different than they did 55 years ago. KFC's still here, which is amazing. There's a CVS pharmacy in this little plaza, Walgreens across the street. In one of the scenes in the film, you could see a State Farm office across the street and a gas station when they have the shot through the window to Simmons behind the wheel. Those things are gone now. There's other stuff there. There is another gas station across the street, but it's not the same one that was the one in the film. And so a lot of these things are different now. But you'll still see the Kentucky Fried Chicken here. The space is still there. Here we are in the very space where Felix was standing and the car was and everything else. So it's always fun to be right on the location spot where they film all this stuff. So Tom will tell you exactly where we are. We're on the corner here, and he'll tell you exactly where that is.
Yeah, so we're on the corner of Northwest 119th Street and Northwest 7th Avenue.
And the address of the place is?
Yeah, and the address of the place is 701 Northwest 119th Street,
so
Miami, Florida.
So it's pretty well known. So again, Miami, Florida, in the USA, and so it's easy to find the place. And actually, Tom and I we ate lunch there. So I don't know if Felix ever ate there, but he was walking out of the restaurant wiping his mouth with a napkin. So we assume he did. Anyway, we had lunch there. It was pretty good. So there we were. Those were live clips from us, Tom and I, down there at the KFC in Miami, and it was fun.
Yeah, that was just so neat. We're like there, and it's like it looks a little different, but it was it.
Yeah,
I mean, we were at the right spot,
and you could still see the address 701. So you'll know you're there and you're in the right spot. So it was kind of cool being right there where Felix was and Simmons, where the car was, and everything else. Kind of fun.
Yep, it's kind of cool. They they redesigned the front of the building a little bit, but it's still, you can tell it's the same spot.
Yep.
And the address is the same, so you're there.
Yep. So now we're off trying to track what Felix and Simmons were trying to track, Oddjob's route, as he's driving Mr. Solo with $1 million worth of gold in the trunk of the Lincoln off to, theoretically, the airport, but we know he's really going to the Miami Iron and Metal Works place for his crushing engagement.
Now, the interesting thing is, Leiter and Simmons, the actors, are physically there.
Yes.
Oddjob and Solo, they're not physically there. So you'll actually notice a difference in some of the scenes if you look closely where they're shooting either Felix and Simmons or Oddjob and Solo. There's a slight different look to them because you've got the whole I'm in the fake car with the green screen thing going on.
Yeah, the internal shots of the car, you could see that. It's like, okay.
So you can tell it's different, but Oddjob wasn't there. In fact, the one shot they have where he's at the metal yard, it's actually they have a stand-in for him there.
Yeah. But we're going to track that route, and we're off doing that now. We're going to cut to a couple of audio clips while we were down there actually doing this. Tom and I are still driving. We're trying to follow Oddjob's trail when he has Mr. Solo in the car, again, bringing him to his pressing engagement that he has. And just south of the KFC, where Felix Leiter and Simmons picks up the signal to start following who they think is Bond, it's actually Oddjob's car with Mr. Solo in they're following. And so just a few blocks south of that, again, we're heading south on Northwest 7th Avenue. And just several blocks south of the KFC where we were, the Kentucky Fried Chicken, is Central Plumbing, which you can see in the movie. Heading a little further south, maybe a few blocks south of Central Plumbing, on the left-hand side of the street, you'll see what is now David Novoa, immigration lawyer. That used to be the 7th Avenue billiard place in the movie. So again, some of these buildings are still here. Some of the names have changed. Some stay the same. But we're trying to, again, follow Oddjob's route to the metal and junk place.
All right, the first few scenes that we've talked about here of Oddjob's drive and Leiter's drive, the places that were there, the shell of it is still there. The buildings are still there. They kind of look the same. This next one that we're going to talk about happens when Oddjob takes that very sharp left turn onto a really busy street, and it's a really hard left. A lot has changed in that intersection, and so there's a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about, and you'll hear in the clips, that are just totally different than what they look like in the movie. But there's a few points at that intersection that are still there they can use to kind of anchor and say, yeah, this was the right place.
All right, we're tracking where Oddjob was driving his car with Mr. Solo in the back seat. And we're on the corner here of 27th Street and Opaluca Avenue. And we think the street, the building across the street, has got a blue roof on it now, used to be the Royal Castle. And across the street, we're standing in a mobile gas station, which we believe was the Sunoco gas station, with and the sign for Joe's Drive-In was on this corner as well. And Joe's Drive-In is now a Burger King. And so if you get to this corner, that's what you're going to see. But this is the corner where Oddjob takes a left-hand turn, a very abrupt left-hand turn, and starts heading down 27th Street. So again, Opaloka Boulevard and 27th Avenue. Again, tracking things that happened in Goldfinger 55 years ago or so is tough. So lots of things have changed, and this entire street has changed, and the fabric of the street has changed. But at least we're in the same spot, we're in the same locations that these events took place in the film. So that's kind of cool. It's always cool to be on the scene of the actual shot. And so we're going to walk across the street to the actual street where Oddjob was turning with the Lincoln and took the sharp left, which you can no longer do. It's too big of an angle street and not allowed. And then we're going to take a shot of where the Joe's Drive-In used to be, and another shot of the building in the background that kind of cements the location. So back live, we actually went across the street and stood on the very street that the Lincoln was driving down when it took the sharp left turn. So again, it was neat to be there, right on the spot where the Lincoln was. We saw exactly where he turned. We saw the street he was driving down, and this is around the area where Felix and Simmons start picking him up.
Simmons they end up going right past that same intersection. And the other part of that is that road is actually a two-way road that he turned left off of. It's two-way now, where it was one way when they filmed it.
Right. And of course, you can't make that left turn legally because it would be dangerous.
So let's go ahead now and go to the Metalworks place.
Yeah. That was fun. Today, we're looking for an iconic scene in one of the best spy movies ever made. This one is in Goldfinger. You'll remember Goldfinger when he's presenting his plan, Operation Grand Slam, to all the mob guys who brought their gold to invest in his plan about taking Fort Knox and getting the gold in Fort Knox. One guy, Mr. Solo, which is a good name for him because he's the only guy who wanted out. He wants out, and he tells Goldfinger, I'm out. I want my money, my gold back, and I'm leaving. So, Goldfinger agrees, excuses himself from the room, goes out to the front of his farm there with the horses and everything else, and he loads the $1 million worth of gold in the trunk of the Lincoln. And Oddjob's job was to drive them to the airport. Well, we're in Miami, Florida, in the United States of America, looking for where they were going to go. Now, Goldfinger is instructing Oddjob to take him to the airport. Bond slips the homing device into Mr. Solo's pocket so that Felix Leiter can track him. Unbeknownst to Bond, Solo is going to his very pressing engagement. So today, we're looking for the spot where Oddjob drives Mr. Solo. And he's driving down the road, some parts on 7th Avenue, and eventually turns into a metal and iron shop and drives in after he shoots Mr. Solo. With Mr. Solo dead in the back seat of the Lincoln, and Oddjob pulling into this iron and metal workshop, you see the end of Mr. Solo as a big crane comes down, picks up the Lincoln, lifts it up, and drops it into a crusher. Well, today, we're looking for that iron and metal shop. We're driving around. There's a lot of iron and metal shops here. There's our GPS trying to get us to where we think we're supposed to be going. There's a lot of scrap metal places all around here. Here's one here. There's another one over here. We've got to figure out where we're going. All right. Actually, we think we found it. You think this is it, Tom?
This is it. This is absolutely it. Because here's the fence that Oddjob turns in and goes into the. That's it right there. Yeah.
I think this is it. This is absolutely it. we're approaching it from the opposite direction of the turn. It's Odd Job turns left into the lot. We've just pulled over, and the railroad tracks. The cranes are going. The railroad tracks are still here. You can still see the railroad tracks, and the cranes are going. I see a big green crane going in there now, and there's trucks pulling in and out, delivering big pieces of metal. And wow, this is just like it is. We're looking right at the gate where Odd Job drove the Lincoln through, and we're gonna try to talk to the guy inside to see if he'll let us in and look around. If he does, we'll be taking the video camera with us as well, so take a look for that on our site. All right, we're actually standing on the railroad tracks that are running parallel to the Metal and Iron Company here. The tracks can be seen in the film too, and we're standing now, walking on the gravel here, right towards the opening where Odd Job drives the Lincoln through, and you can hear all the background noise. Cranes are going, all kinds of things are going. The gentleman was nice enough to let us in and to look around, so we asked permission, of course. This is private property. It's a business going on here, and we're looking now at its big sign that says restricted area, and cars are coming in and out. Trucks are bringing stuff in. Cranes are moving large metal pieces. Dump trucks are dumping metal all over the place here. We're actually walking into the place now with permission. As we said, we're pretty much standing on the spot where Odd Job stops the Lincoln, and where the big crane comes down and gets the Lincoln and brings it and lifts it into the dumpster. This is very cool. I would say if you're in Miami, you've got to come here, past this little spot here. We looked around. There's about 10 of these metal shops around here, but this is the actual one. So very cool. Spy Movie Navigator will continue to do more of these. While we're in Miami for our Goldfinger film location tour, we talked to a friend of ours, Matt Sherman, and he said, you got to go to Joe's Stone Crab restaurant. They have fabulous stone crabs, and you got to go in there. And he said, when you go in there, ask for Mitch. So we went in, Tom and I went in, and we said, table for two, and they said I'd be about a half an hour wait. And then we said, Matt Sherman told us to get Mitch as our waiter, and about 2 minutes later we had a table. And
yeah, that was a quick half hour.
Yeah,
I think I went to the bar, ordered a drink. We hadn't even gotten.
We had to take him to our table.
Yeah,
it was kind of cool. So we went in and ate.
Yeah, and actually the reason why Matt suggested we go to this place is in the Fleming novel of Goldfinger, Bond, because he's down in Florida.
Yep.
On his vacation, he goes in there, and at the time in the book he called it Bill's on the Beach, but it really was Joe's Stone Crab. Yeah. And Bond said that it was the best meal he had ever eaten in his life.
Yeah.
So we went, and it was a really darn good meal.
Yeah.
And it was not the cheapest meal I've ever eaten.
It was pricier than the KFC.
It was pricier than the KFC by a lot. It's a pretty expensive restaurant, but if you're looking for a restaurant to splurge at, and you like seafood, this is a really good restaurant. And Mitch did a great job taking care of us.
Ask for Mitch. Tell him the guys from Spy Movie Navigator sent you.
Now, and one of the reasons that they called him, that Matt said to go to Mitch, was that his nickname at the restaurant was 007. Yeah. And so we asked him about it, and he says he's a big Bond fan now, but at the time he just went in a really nice suit with French cuffs and cufflinks, and had his hair slicked back
for his interview.
Yeah. And they hired him, and they said, "Boy, you're just like 007 because you're so cool looking." And so that's how he got that nickname. But if you go down there, ask for Mitch. If you can't remember that, say, "Hey, is 007 serving tonight?"
Yeah, tell him Spy Movie Navigator guy sent you. Yeah. He's a cool guy.
All right, so we've completed the Miami part of our journey, and we're now going to switch films. and locations and head down towards Key West, on our way down to Key West, where they filmed a lot of the movie License to Kill. In fact, License to Kill was one of the few movies they didn't shoot much at Pinewood at all. It was done.
I don't know if they shot anything at Pinewood for that one. And also the cool thing is, on the Florida Keys on your way, it's somewhere between a 3 and 5 hour drive from Miami.
Well, it depends on if there's an auction going on.
Yeah, there was
on the main
there was
road.
a nautical flea market when we were driving there, and it took us 7 hours or something. But they do film besides Key West. They film in Sugarloaf Key, and they film in the 7 Mile Bridge, which is really probably 30-40 minutes away from Key West,
up near Marathon.
Right. So now we're going to head to Key West, Florida.
So Dan, we started this podcast talking, you asked the question, how fun would it be to go visit filming locations from Goldfinger and from License to Kill?
Yes.
And first, it was a lot of fun, and second, going there in February, coming from Chicago, that even made it more fun.
It's greater fun.
Yes.
But it was fun. We got to about 17 different film locations, and every one was fun. Everyone is unique because you're in a different spot. And when you see it in the movie and you see it in person, there's just something, again, fun about being there.
And trying to get as close as you can to being looking at it exactly like you saw it from the camera's eye.
Yeah. And in Key West, I mean, there's just a tremendous number of bars and restaurants. The restaurants are fabulous. The seafood is terrific. We went out to dinner with a couple of friends down there and had some Vesper martinis. Of course, we had to try that, and they were pretty good. The third one was really good.
I don't
know. As far as we remember.
I don't know if we had a fourth. I don't remember.
But it was fun. And so that's the kind of stuff you could wrap around your trips. So again, you could either go on a specific trip for film locations, by movie film locations like Tom and I do a lot, or you can wrap around some of this other stuff to it as around it as well. Like, hey, the Hemingway house in Key West is an historical property. It's also part of the Bond film. So there's other things. And then the dinners and fun and the bars, and it's just a good time. So there's lots of ways to have a good time while you're out there searching for spy film locations.
Yeah, it was a tiring trip, but we had the ample opportunity to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you can look on our website for a lot of the video. We took a lot of video of this entire trip as well, and most of the scenes and places that we visited too. So check that out too at spymovienavigator.com, and join us with the fun too, and send us your pictures and your videos, because we're looking forward to that.
And so we'd like to thank you for listening, and hope you listen to the next one. This is Tom Pizzato.
And Dan Silvestri from spymovienavigator.com, the worldwide community of spy movie fans. Spy movie podcasts, videos, discussions, and more.